Hey, what's going on, and welcome to this episode of the Rust programming language series. Today we're going to talk about functions in Rust and how to declare new functions. So let's jump straight into some code. So just below the main function here, we're going to declare a new function simply called another function. So to declare a new function, you write fn, and that stands for function. So fn and then your function's name. So for me, that's going to be fn another function, and then just open and close parentheses like that. And then you also want to open and close some curly braces, and in between these curly braces is where we're going to write our code. All right, so you could have some variables here, and I'm going to show an example of that later, but for now just leave it empty. All right, so this function is going to print line another function and semicolon, and up here in the main function we're going to call that function by writing another function and semicolon. So save that, compile, and run it. And as you can see, the main function calls the another function and prints out another function. So that works perfectly fine. So if you want to have some variables in your functions, you can add some variable names up here. And also you need to declare what variable type they are. So for example, if you want to have a number, let's call it x. And then it's going to be of the type i32. And then in the print line, you can just call it like usual. So curly braces, and then the variable name. And now up here, as you can see, this turns red because this function takes one parameter, but 0 parameters were supplied. So we need to add a i32 up here. So I think 5 is a pretty good example. So save that and then recompile it. And as you can see, this prints 5. So you can add more parameters here, or variables. So x i32, and let's declare a variable called y. That's also going to be an i32. And now we can call this function sum. And what it's going to do is that it's going to print out the sum of x plus y. Alright, so as you can see, again, this turns red because another sum, we gotta change this, is expecting 2 parameters, but only 1 is given. So let's have 5 and 2. So save and recompile. And as you can see, this prints out 7. Alright, so your functions can also return a value. So for now, we're only printing them out, but we could do this instead. So print line, and that's macro. All right, there we go. And something like this, there we go. And then we're going to return a value, and to return a value, you write this and then the value type. So here it's going to be i32. So we're going to take in 2 i32s, and we're going to return a i32. And then to return it, there are 2 different ways to do it. Either you can just write it like this, and then Rust will know that you want to return it, or you can actually compile that. You just make sure. All right, still works. And the other way to do it is you can write return, and then you need to put a semicolon at the end. So recompile that, and this still works perfectly fine. A more useful example would be if you want to get your user from a database, then you could declare a function called get underscore user, and it's going to take in a user ID. So let's just make that a u64, and then it's going to return an option, and it's either going to be a string or an option string, sorry. All right, so let's see here. We can do something like if user ID is equal to 1, return some, and let's call it just Johnson, and then to string. All right, and else return none. And then up here we have to match this, so we're going to do match get user, and the user ID is going to be, let's say, 1, and then we are going to do some user name, and then we're going to print out the username, and none. We are not going to do anything, and then remove this print line up here. So actually that looks better. So try to run this now, and as you see, this prints out Johnson. And actually I prefer if this would say user doesn't exist. That makes more sense. So now we're going to try to get user of the user ID 2. So recompile, and now you can see user doesn't exist. Alright, so that concludes this episode. Now good luck and happy coding.